All right, Johnny, how are you today?
Yeah, good, Stu. How are you?
Not too bad. What's happening?
All good, all good. On my YouTube channel, actually, I recently spoke to kind of a mortgage expert in Spain and
Oh,
was able
really?
to get a really good interview. So, yeah, if people want to go check that out on my channel, you can
Is
do.
it a Spanish guy?
Spanish woman, yeah. But we did the interview kind of in Spanish, but it's translated into English for the viewers. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm not just recommending this because it's my channel. Like the stuff that she's like shared in the interview was like very, very valuable stuff, and not standard information that you'd find anywhere.
It's
So
okay to give your channel a plug, Johnny. No
yeah,
problem.
shameless plug.
All right, so what are we speaking about today?
So let's begin with news on business closures in Spain. So
Okay.
sad news, unfortunately. When we look at the register of businesses in Spain at the end of 2021, there were 70,000 less than at the beginning of the year, end of 2020.
70,000 less.
Yeah.
What are we putting that down to? Obviously the pandemic crisis.
Yeah, so it will be down to, of course, the situation going on and the health situation going on. So I think there was 153 business closures over the course of the year, and then there must have been about, so that would make 80,000 new businesses open. So it means that only 40% with like of the businesses that are closed, only 40% of them have been recovered through new business creation.
Oh, okay, very
Unfortunately,
good,
yeah.
very good. And does it say what sectors were hardest hit?
Let me have a quick look. So it doesn't talk so much about the sectors, but what it does give is kind of a breakdown by autonomous community, which is quite
Okay.
interesting to look at. So one of the worst hit autonomous communities is Cantabria, which
Oh,
registered,
really?
yeah, which registered actually 12% business closure between the end of 2020 and 2021.
Hmm.
Interestingly, on the other end of the scale, so the Canary Islands registered 12% less closures, probably because I would imagine a lot of those businesses closures would have happened in 2020. So with the country starting to open last year, we would have seen less closures as a result of that. Yeah.
Yeah, probably it would also come down to whether there was some type of help for certain businesses or whether the autonomous communities in question were able to give them a lifeline or some type of subsidy during those times. Because if businesses were kept closed, and I imagine that's the reason why a lot of businesses ended up disappearing, especially in the industries that we know, Johnny, the hospitality industry, the bars, restaurants, the hotels, and things like that. Obviously, if they were forced to close, in places like the Valencian community, Catalonia, they were closed for a long time. In fact, I think they've only recently opened in Catalonia. After all of the, since the beginning of the pandemic when they shut down. So, or at least going back to their regular times. And I think we saw the images on the television the other day of 5,000 people crammed into a nightclub again, which was something that they haven't seen in Barcelona or other places of Catalonia there for a long time. So, if you did have your business shut down for such a long time, obviously, Johnny, it is difficult to keep it open, and close the door and hand in the keys, and away you go.
Yeah, and that is probably reflected in the stats because when you look at Catalonia compared to the likes of Madrid, Madrid is the least affected of the autonomous communities. So I saw about 2% fewer business closures versus last year, and
Yeah.
then just a very, very small amount versus the prior month as well. Whereas you see Catalonia and other autonomous communities like Valencia, yeah, the closures are much, much higher.
Well, that's right, yeah, because as we know, here in Madrid, everything was kept open basically, except for those 3 months when, excuse me, when everything was forced to close down. In the rest of the waves of the pandemic, things were open, and that's one of the reasons why the Madrid Premier is so popular, I believe, because she did keep those businesses open and saved a lot of jobs, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think when
That's
we had the election last year as well, there were a lot of people talking about, they voted for her because she essentially kept their businesses open by. minimizing restrictions.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, it's easy to look back now and say that that was the best thing to do, but of course, nobody probably knew at the time, and different autonomous communities here in Spain had a different criteria, and obviously we are seeing the results of that now. With these businesses closing, but I don't know if you can see when you walk around the streets, Johnny, can you see a lot of businesses closed that looked as though they were open, a couple of years ago?
Well, this is an interesting point you make. So I remember at the end of 2020 watching a video of a travel YouTuber essentially going through, I think it was Malaga or a city in the south, and you saw a lot of businesses closed, a lot of shutters down. And it was kind of a wake-up call for me because in Madrid, that site at the time was not so common. You would expect some business closures, but you go around Madrid, a lot of businesses were still open at that time. It kind of, makes you forget about, in other parts of the country, businesses are shut down, and it's having a tough impact on some people. Yeah.
Who was the travel blogger? Can you remember?
I'll see if I can find his name and I'll pass it on to you. But I think it might have been Travel Guy or something like that. It was an American
addict guy.
Might have been. It was an American guy.
Yeah. I think I've seen some of his videos. Yeah, he walks around the streets quite a lot, filming everything, and I think I have seen a video where he was talking about the amount of businesses that were closed down and saying things like, "It's the crisis, guys. It's the crisis," and so interesting videos from the Travel Addict Guy. I think that's his name, Travel Addict Guy.
I think it is, yeah.
I'm sure somebody will know who we're talking about. Good, what's next, Johnny?
All right, so next we've got the government's growth predictions for the year and how they already, according to some think tanks, look like they're not going to be achieved. So the government's prediction for growth in 2022 was 7% approximately. And already, due to the rise in inflation costs, the price of petrol, and also, debt in Spain, a lot of think tanks have downgraded the prediction to about 5.7%. So not so close to the 7% the government was aiming for this year.
Yeah. I saw something from the IMF the other day saying that Spain's going to grow at 5.8%, and they were a little bit worried that although that sounds like a good figure, Johnny, we're not pre-pandemic recovery levels yet in Spain, and I think it's the only country in the in the Eurozone that hasn't recovered to pre-pandemic levels, I believe. I'm sure somebody will pick me up on that if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I watched a BBC video the other day talking about the cost of living crisis in Spain, which was an interesting watch. And they did say that of all the EU countries, Spain was one of the hardest hit by this and has had one of the biggest challenges recovering as well.
Yeah. Well, I think they were predicting to get that growth back by the end of 2022 at that 7%, which is what you were mentioning before. But if it's only going to be 5.8 or 5.6, 5.7, whatever it's going to be in the end, it might not get back, and that just prolongs the downturn basically. And the European Union, I believe, because they're putting a lot of money into the country to stimulate the economy, and Spain's lucky. I mean, we've got to put this on the table, Johnny, that Spain is lucky to have the European Union there, because imagine if it wasn't there, how long would it take to get out, And so the European Union's funneling billions and billions of euros into the economy, and then we can read things like there's a labour shortage, the construction businesses are struggling to get workers, other sectors also struggling to get workers. So this is all hampering the recovery, and it's worrying for the government, I think,
Yeah, but maybe this is where some of those EU funds can come in and help with that recovery. At least that's what they're supposedly destined for. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, the EU Recovery Fund could play a major role in this recovery.
Well, that's it. But the idea is to stimulate the economy and get it back to those, pre-2020 levels, and fix some of the problems that have plagued the economy here for a long time. For example, youth unemployment, which we've talked about, and other problems like that, which seem to never go away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Labour market has been reformed, but then again, people are saying that it's not really much of a reform, but the international bodies seem happy with it. So we'll see where we are at by the end of the year and going into 2023. All right, good. Anything else on that topic, Johnny?
Nothing else on that topic, so maybe we'll move on to the next one, which is the most expensive neighborhoods in Spain to rent in. Now, I think we can pretty much guess which cities these neighborhoods are going to be in.
Madrid. Yeah, Madrid, obviously.
And the other one, of course, would be the other expensive city in Spain to live in, Barcelona, yeah. Yeah, so the most expensive neighborhoods to live in Madrid in Madrid is the neighborhood of Recoletos, which is around
bangs in the center.
Yeah, smack bang in the center. Obviously, now I live outside the city. I discovered this Cercanía station because of the train line.
Recoletos, that's right.
Yeah, very well positioned actually, right next to the Barrio de Salamanca, and then you've got the center, a 10-15 minute walk away as well.
Well, yeah. Well, the Recoleto station is on the just underneath the Castellana. So you've got an exit that comes out at the Colón Square, and then there's another exit that comes out closer to Cibeles, which is another important monument. And then on both sides, you've got Salamanca on one side, and then you've got Chueca on the other side, which is also a pretty trendy neighborhood nowadays. So, it is and of course, you've got those houses along the Castellana there, which obviously are the ones that they're talking about, which would be very exclusive if they're not office blocks. That's right.
Yeah, and Chueca also comes up as one of the more expensive neighborhoods to rent in as well in Madrid. Yeah. So you've got Recoletos and Chueca in Madrid. Yeah. And then in Barcelona, you've got Fort Pienc, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. My Catalan's not so bad. And El Born as well. The two expensive neighborhoods in Barcelona.
And are they similar positioned, given, very central? Yeah.
So let me check where El Born is.
What was another one in Madrid there? So you said Recoletos, and what was another one?
And Chueca.
Chuecas. Those were the two, were they?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically they overlap. Okay.
Yeah, so El Born is right next to the port in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And Fort Pienc is it's just below Diagonal and near the Ciutadella Park.
Well, I don't really know Barcelona that well, so I can't, sort of picture where they are. But Madrid's another story, and Chueca is an interesting place because it's sort of become it's like a boutique neighborhood nowadays. It's full of fancy clothing stores and fancy wine shops and fancy food shops and restaurants and all of these things, and it's really transformed itself into a wonderful neighborhood. I mean, the location's always been there. It's always been in the same spot. But it's just the people that have moved in and changed the dynamics. I think we spoke about it going back maybe last year sometime, Johnny, this gentrification. Did we speak about that once of some of the neighborhoods in Madrid?
Yeah, I think we briefly touched on it, but definitely what you say, I remember seeing a video on Chueca as a neighborhood, and it was interviewing an older couple that have lived in that neighborhood for a long, long time, and they were talking about how much it's changed over time as well.
Well, it used to be. I think when I first came to Madrid many, many years ago, it was a dodgy neighborhood because all of that area on that side of the Gran Via. So if you walk up the Gran Via, heading towards Moncloa, people that know Madrid, I'll put a map up so that people know what I'm talking about. When you walk up the Gran Via, all of the side on the right going up towards Moncloa, let's say, has always been, those streets behind there have always been a bit dodgy, Calle Luna was a street that had a bad reputation back in the day. The other side, not so much, because the other side went down to Puerta del Sol, and there were some offices and things around that area as well. Montero had a bad reputation as well, so that was also a fairly dodgy street back in the day, but that's completely changed now. And Chueca's the neighborhood that has been, transformed into a very trendy neighborhood, and also Malasaña, which is, if you keep on going up, it's also just off to the right of the Gran Via.
Yeah, it's where the popular nightlife is in Madrid, both of those neighborhoods.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Yeah, the typical garitos, that's right. Yeah, the typical little bars and nightclubs that are open till 3 o'clock in the morning, and you wouldn't even know from the outside that it's a place, right? Sometimes there's
Yeah.
some fairly dodgy places around that part of the world still. But anyway, yeah, good. That's it. Increasing neighbourhoods, and I imagine that there will be some other ones there that are probably not mentioned, Johnny. But basically, anywhere inside the M30 nowadays is expensive.
Yeah, that's it. And then if we want to talk about very quickly some of the cheaper neighborhoods, so an interesting statistic is that no neighborhood in Castilla y León and Castilla-La Mancha has an average rental square price of over 10 euros.
Not one.
Not one. And I think Valladolid was one of the cheapest at around 8 or 9 euros per square meter.
So in both of the Castillas, very, very cheap to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually considered moving into Castilla-La Mancha for the cheaper living, but then decided, I'll stay in Madrid for the time being.
Well, you're on the border.
That's it. Yeah, it's still got the proximity to Madrid, but given my situation, I thought I'll stay in Madrid, and I have slightly better transport links if I stay in Madrid as well.
Yeah. Well, I think 10 kilometers to your east, you're in Guadalajara, right?
That's it, yeah, 10, 20 kilometers and in Guadalajara.
That's right. So you're not far away now, Johnny. All right, good. Anything else?
That was all, Stu.
All right, great. Good speaking to you again, and we'll be in contact for next week. Can you or not?
I can't next week, but the week after, we will be in touch.
We'll be back. All right, good one, Johnny. Talk then. See you later.
Later, Stu. Bye-bye.
Bye.